It's Wednesday. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. I'm your host, Maddie Margarita, here with SCWA's tech wizard, Diana Pardee. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., SCWA turns our Facebook page over to a new and different writer to talk about their books and their work. This morning, we're pleased and excited to welcome Bruce Coffin. Bruce is the award-winning author of the Detective Byron mystery series and former detective sergeant with more than 27 years in law enforcement. At the time of his retirement from the Portland, Maine Police Department, he supervised all homicide and violent crime investigations for Maine's largest city. Following the terror attacks of September 11th, Bruce spent 4 years working counter-terrorism with the FBI, earning the Director's Award, the highest honor a non-agent can receive. Winner of Killer Nashville's I always hate this award. I hate people who win this award. The Silver Falchion, is that right?
Falchion. Yeah.
I'll get that eventually. Awards for the Best Procedural and Best Investigator, and the Maine Literary Award for Best Crime Fiction Novel. Bruce was also a finalist for the Agatha Award for Best Contemporary Novel. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Maddie.
Yeah, we got all that other good stuff, all your whole history out in 3 seconds.
My bio.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about Within Plain Sight and the Detective John Byron series.
Actually the book, you can see the poster right behind me, I guess. The book is the fourth in the John Byron detective mystery series. And it follows the life of a detective sergeant, a fictional detective sergeant who works for the Portland, Maine Police Department. Go figure. I decided not to reinvent the wheel and not to waste nearly 3 decades of experience. So really what I set out to do was write a series, a very realistic procedural series that had the fun of solving a mystery and all that other stuff, but was very realistic. As much real life experience as I could put in to a fictional story is what I set out to do and have done with every book. The other thing that I wanted to make sure I accomplished when I started this series was I didn't want my main characters to be static. So if you read the series in order, you get to follow the character arcs that I built in. They have very realistic lives. Good things happen, bad things, setbacks, that kind of thing. But also I write them so they'll stand alone because I'm probably the worst person in the world at reading a series in order. I usually discover the series about book 4 or 5, and then I realize there's a series. Right. The prequel time, so.
Well, it's interesting. You left him. He had kind of a tough. Well, you always give him a rough road to hoe, but the previous book was he had a tough time. So when we start in Plain Sight, where is he in?
So John is. I intentionally decided when I started the series, sometimes you'll see people go downhill or get into trouble when they're in a series, regardless if it's a PI or an amateur sleuth or whatever. But I wanted to portray him as realistic as I could. So when the first book in the series comes along, he's an alcoholic. There's no question. He's struggling. His marriage is falling apart. He's your stereotypical, I've been on the job too long and I'm really good at it, but my personal life is in shambles. So that's the one place that he can't hold it together. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to show that trail, and hopefully a positive trail that leads him to sobriety. And really that was all kind of encompassed in the first 3 books, which were the initial contract. I didn't know that there would be more. And so when the 4th book comes along, what was great was it gave me a chance to have that next page in his life. If you'll forgive the pun. John is now sober, and he's been sober for a short period of time and is trying to figure out how to keep things together, still be a diligent homicide investigator, and try to continue with sobriety.
Yeah. So so many people are interested in police work and the job police do. It's becoming harder every day to do that job, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think people are so interested in police procedurals and mysteries and serial killers, name the horseman, which I thought was just great. It's so evocative. But why do you think people are so interested in those aspects?
I just think it's human nature. I think we all want to try and solve the riddle. We all want to see if we can outthink the protagonist or the antagonist in a story, whether it's novels or television or movies. We all want that challenge. It's like a puzzle, and I think that's why, like, Agatha Christie was so popular. I think that's just a thing that goes on forever. As far as having it be a murder mystery. At least in the case of the real life, detective sergeant or anyone who does that for a living, I don't think the stakes are any higher. I think it's much different than trying to solve there's a missing pair of sneakers or something like that. There's nothing that rises to that level like a homicide does. So I think it's human nature, I think, to want to try to figure that out. And I think everybody's a little paranoid. We all want to know what makes somebody that can do that tick. And we hope that there's a lot of distance between whatever motivates them and what motivates us.
Yeah. One of the reasons when I read them, and I read a lot now, particularly, even more than I read growing up, but I'm always interested in the police or the detective character to try to understand how they have the capacity to deal with what cops have to deal with. And I know a lot of cops, and I love their humor. If you want to laugh, you want to sit in a bar with a couple of cops because they are just really funny. That dark humor. But it's interesting. So when you were building John Byron as a character, how did you approach building him as a character? How is he different in your estimation from a lot of the other detective characters out there that you read or see?
I think one of the things that I really had to learn, this was the hardest part, I think, of writing John, was my mentor, Kate Flora, who is an accomplished mystery and true crime writer up in his neck of the woods. She told me the one thing she thought in my early versions of John Byron that was missing was I hadn't done a good job of portraying his vulnerability. And I think that's, typical of a new writer. We're trying to create that super person to solve everything, but it wasn't realistic. And so she gave me permission to write John's vulnerable side because, as she pointed out to me, he's not you. And it's almost like I needed a reminder of that. And so I think I'm most proud of that. There's it's written in third person, but it's close third person. So I get into the heads and share that with the reader of my characters. And John has a lot of interesting thoughts, funny thoughts, serious thoughts. And he's also carrying baggage from his childhood, which really has had a huge effect on his career, an impact on his career and who he is. So, which you have to read the first book to get all that. But
all right, you hear that, folks? You have to read the first book too.
That's this one right here.
That was well placed. Okay, that's Among the Shadows. And we see basically the poster of Within Plain Sight behind you. Do you have the book there?
I do. Hang on a second. Hang on.
Just happen to have one with you? Hold on.
Yep. Right here. Right there. There's Within Plain Sight.
That's a great cover, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And now all of these books are set in Portland, right?
Right, they're all centered, Portland centric.
Okay.
The investigations do lead them around. Actually, the last book, Within Plain Sight, John ends up traveling to Boston to hook up with his cousin, who's a detective down in Boston at the Boston Police Department, and they are comparing notes on the horseman that you'd mentioned earlier. So, but generally, he stays around the Portland area. But yeah, I've got him traveling around. All the locals around here want their restaurant in the book, and they all want some mention. Hey, can John come here? You know how that goes, right?
Yeah. Well, he's sort of like the Harry Bosch of LA. Right. There you go.
He really of the Northeast. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Right.
I'm actually very impressed with how Michael Connelly portrays that because obviously he didn't come from the same job I did, but he was a crime reporter. And it's obvious that he did his homework. And I think he probably was let behind the scenes by some of the LA detectives because he does a really nice job portraying that role.
Yeah. So, and you write other things too, right? Other than just the books. Is that correct?
I do. I write short stories
short
as
stories?
well. Short stories really was kind of where I cut my teeth. That was my big passion, I think, growing up. I mean, I love to read novels, but I wrote a lot of short stories.
Can I stop you for a minute? How old were you when you started, or at what point? Let's not give anybody any chronological clues here. So how long ago was it that you started writing short stories?
Yeah, really, I think I started, for me, everything changed when I read Salem's Lot when I was a kid.
Oh.
And I knew right then that's what, if I could do any job I wanted, it was to be a novelist. And I knew I didn't have the attention span for that then. So short stories became the thing. And I did. I wrote them all through school. I mean, my writing ability actually got me to college on scholarship, and that's kind of thing. I never really lost the love of the short story, but once you start writing, 100,000-word manuscripts, I was almost afraid to go back and do another short story, afraid that I wouldn't be able to get back into the novel saddle. But I still writing them. I had I think 3 come out last year in different anthologies. So
are they along the same topics of your books?
They're all crime fiction, but some of them delve into different genres. There's a little supernatural in one of the ones I did. I did one. It was a Jimmy Buffett themed anthology called The Great Filling Station Hold Up that Josh Patra put out, and that one I really got to have some fun with. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, but usually crime fiction. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious. You said that your writing got you into college and everything. So what got you into law enforcement?
My writing professor in college, who was less than taken with my writing ability. It's funny how that happens, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it was traumatic at the time, but it forced me to go out and make a decision. And I'm lucky that I picked something that actually would be filling the well for later on. I had no idea I was going to return to writing. It just happened. And I started writing again about 9 months before I retired in 2012, and I haven't stopped. The first, I was 52 when my first novel was published, and we're still rolling there. So hopefully that continues.
Well, that's great. So I guess you should have no shortage of stories. Is that
no
story ideas?
No, the well is definitely full. It's just a question of making, turning them into something that people want to read. That's always the trick.
So I think sometimes your reality is so outside of normal experience that when you write it, do you ever wonder if people are going to believe that that's real? Right. That stuff really happens?
I do. It's funny. My wife and I had a conversation when I was working on the third novel. And I actually kind of delved into some things I didn't expect would happen. You as a mystery writer or whatever, as a fiction writer, you just assume you're going to sit down and make stuff up and that you're not going to actually dig into your own psyche. And there were a couple of scenes in that third book that actually really set me off, really got me upset. And you find yourself getting, your eyes are leaking and you're trying to figure out how that can happen. I'm losing my mind. And my wife said, you don't have to worry about it unless the readers aren't moved as well. Yeah. And to a person, everybody has had that same reaction. So it makes me very happy to know that, I can offer that to somebody.
Yeah, that's such a great vindication for all the time that it takes you to write a book. How long does it take you to write a book?
With all the edits and rewrites and all that other stuff, it's usually probably between a year and a half when I'm under deadline. COVID has made that process take a little longer. The writing hasn't been harder. I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day. It's the plotting that has been difficult because I find myself being overly critical of where a book is headed, and I'll just start over, which is probably not the way to go. But I've had 5 versions of the 5th book that I'm working on before I finally arrived at the one that I'm writing now. So,
is that a process you recommend to other writers?
No, not if you're under deadline.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're not, the luxury is it gives you a chance to write the best book. I think as a writer, hopefully we all have learned something as we go along, and with any luck, the books keep getting better. I think you have to avoid the temptation to mail that in and merely repeat a theme you've already done. It's better to reach down and find something that you have new to offer the reader, I think.
That's such a great point. So I'm wondering, what do you hope that a reader feels when they read the last page and close one of your books? Let's talk about Within Plain Sight, because each of your books are different, even though they're a series. But in plain sight, when they close the book, what are you hoping that they feel after they read the last word?
Obviously, I hope they feel closure. I hope they've enjoyed the most recent chapter of what my characters are up to. And more importantly, I hope they're anxious to find out what happens next. We've all watched those streaming series where unfortunately they don't make you wait a week anymore. You can watch the whole thing at once. And the first thing you do is say, oh my God, I have to wait a year for the next season. I want people to do that when they read my books.
Okay, great. Well, and this is, God, 15 minutes flies by so fast. Where can people find your books, Bruce?
You can find them at any of your local bookstores. If they don't carry them already, have them order them. That's great. Support the local business, but they are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the HarperCollins page online, my website, brucerobertcoffin.com, pretty much anywhere.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Best of luck with your book sales and on your book 5.
Right.
Yeah, we wish you lots of luck and inspiration on that. And thank you for being here, and thank everyone for watching. We appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment, like the kids say. And also you can share this video on Facebook, or you can go to our YouTube page, which is SCWA Writers Online, and also see more videos like this and share. Not like Bruce, because Bruce is an individual writer, so not like this, but similar to this. See, writers are always parsing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And if you can afford to support Bruce and buy his books, I'm sure you will be disappointed if you are buying digital copies or taking them from the library. Please leave reviews. Those are as valuable sometimes as sales. So every little bit helps. So thank you again for being here, and we will see you next week on the SCWA Hump Day Book Tour. Bye. Take care.